If you enjoy listening to The Bid, you'll love reading it too. The Bid's monthly newsletter brings together the same sharp insights and big ideas you hear on the show, from the minds shaping markets and investing today. Each edition breaks down what's driving markets and what it could mean for your portfolio in just a few minutes. Subscribe for free at blackrock.com/thebid. The Bid, ideas that move markets. Welcome to The Bid, where we break down what's happening in the markets and explore the forces changing the economy and finance. I'm Oscar Pulido. Today, we're bringing you a special Ask Me Anything episode focused entirely on a topic we hear about constantly: retirement.
For me, retirement is the choice to do what's next. It's the freedom to do what's next. So it could mean the choice to start a business, or the choice to go back to school, or the choice to travel the world, do charity, philanthropy, but it's a choice. And in order to have that choice, you actually need to have a plan.
Whether you're just starting out on your retirement journey or thinking about how to transition out of the workforce, today's guest will help you get on the right track in terms of considering your retirement options. Our guest is Jaime Magyera, head of BlackRock's U.S. Wealth Advisory and Retirement businesses. Jaime spends a lot of her time in conversations with both individual savers and financial advisors across the country. We'll talk about the biggest themes on people's minds today, from how to build savings early, to supporting small business owners, to staying financially resilient throughout a longer life. Jaime, thank you so much for joining us on The Bid.
It's great to be here.
And welcome back. This is a different format than the last time we spoke. This is part of our Ask Me Anything series, where we bring in a guest and we ask them questions that our listeners have submitted. So obviously, in your role as the head of the U.S. Wealth Advisory business, you talk to a lot of end clients, a lot of financial advisors. So I think you'll find that the questions are in the spirit of what you do day to day.
This is quite intimidating.
It's okay. We've had some success with this, and you're a pro. So Jaime, let's start with one theme that we keep hearing from listeners, which is about the transition into retirement itself. You and I spoke a lot about retirement the last time we spoke. And people say they've spent decades building a career or a business, and now they're trying to figure out the shift into the next phase. So what do you tell people who are just starting to think about this transition?
Yeah. So first of all, I love that you said shift into a next phase or a transition, because I find that so many people think about retirement as this kind of ending point, right? It's the stop, it's the destination. And the way I think about retirement is, for me, retirement is the choice to do what's next. It's the freedom to do what's next. And for people, that means many different things, right? So it could mean the choice to start a business, or the choice to go back to school, or the choice to travel the world, do charity, philanthropy, but it's a choice. And in order to have that choice, you actually need to have a plan, right? You need to be prepared emotionally and mentally. You also need to be prepared financially. And so for people who have been saving and have been investing, approaching that time where you're thinking about what you're going to do next is a time to take stock of how you've invested and what you've saved. But importantly, what do you then need to do or get from those savings? Do you need to generate income to support what you're going to do next? You need to now protect those savings. You need to grow those savings further. But if you've had a plan and you've been investing all along, now's the time to either keep working with an advisor or find a financial advisor to maybe help you really refine that plan as you go into retirement or whatever that next phase is for you. And by the way, for many people, they might not be as prepared as they had intended. And that's okay, right? Life happens. We have many competing priorities, both financially as well as with our time. And so getting started and getting back on track is really important. And the good news is you have time to do that, right? You have time to keep investing, to keep saving. And again, working with an advisor or even online resources or tools to help you figure out what is it that you actually need in order to go do what you want to do next.
You're painting this picture of retirement being a very active phase. And I love what you said about the freedom to do what's next, but it's also an active phase in terms of thinking about your finances. Maybe we could switch to a different generation. We've also heard from some of our younger listeners. These are the folks who are maybe still a whiles away from retirement. And a lot of early career workers told us that they're thinking about their financial future much earlier than they expected. I think that's good news. They want to know, what are the most important things someone can do in their 20s or 30s to set themselves up for long-term financial security?
So first of all, I think that's great news that people are thinking about this so much earlier and they're actually asking the question, what do I do? How do I do it? Look, what I would say is just get started, right? Just get started. That's the key to all of this is start investing, start saving early, start doing it young, even when you can't imagine what that future might look like. A wise friend once told me that you can't save for the future in the future. And it sounds a little crazy to say, wow, that's the wisest thing I've ever heard. Actually, if you start to think about that, it's very true. You can't plan for the future in the future. You can't save for the future in the future. And so I just think about my own story. I mean, when I first started working, this is going back 25 years ago now, I had student loans. I wasn't making a lot of money. I had to pay my rent. I had all of these bills. But I remember I made a point every month to have $50 deducted from my checking account and just put into a savings and investing account. And it felt like a lot of money back then because, by the way, $50 could have bought me more coffee or whatever it was. But I made that choice and I stuck to that discipline. And over the 25 years, that's actually turned into a good deal of money. And so the point here is it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. And so if you think about us, Oscar, if we had invested a little bit of money back in the markets, let's call it in 2000, today, that money that we invested would have been worth 7 times the amount that we invested. So just think about that concept. Again, it's not about timing the markets. Markets go up and down, but it is about consistently being in the market and having enough time in the market. So what I would say to everyone is just get started, right? Open up a brokerage account, open up a savings and investment account at your bank. If you work for a company that offers a retirement savings plan, take advantage of it. Use that. Every little bit that you save and invest is going to pave a way toward your future.
7 times what you would have invested in 2000. Think about all the scary headlines that have taken place since then and maybe have given you reason to not invest, but if you stayed the course, you were successful. And I have a bit of a steel trap memory. That $50 deduction, I think, is a story about your dad as well, if I'm not mistaken.
It is very good.
We heard about that the last time we spoke. We also heard from some listeners whose retirement timelines don't follow a traditional pattern. So we're thinking about dual career households, gig workers, blended families, partners that are retiring at different times. They asked, how do you build a sense of financial security when your career path and family structure are anything but linear?
So I listened to this question and it makes me scratch my head a little bit because I find that my experience has been anything but linear. And I wonder what it is even like to have a linear progression here. But I think what you're hearing from this question is that the world has changed, right? Our lives have changed. Our families have changed. Our career paths have changed. And by the way, they'll continue to change. And for me, I think there's really 3 things that I tend to think about when I think about my own journey and where I'm going. The first is really thinking about goals versus milestones. I find that a lot of times we're sitting here saying, what's the magic age to start saving or build a plan? Or what's the magic dollar amount I need in order to retire? And it's really not about that. It's about what you want to do and what goals and objectives you have and how you want to use your money to support your life, to support your family, to support your dreams. I often talk to my family and friends about this. It's not the milestones, it's the goals. It's what you want to do with what you're saving and what you're investing. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is it's really not about the perfect plan. It's not about having this perfect plan on paper. It's about the direction of the plan. And earlier you talked about discipline, right? And continuing to save and continuing to invest, even when markets go up or down. My suggestion to everyone is just commit to having a plan. Build a plan that puts you in the driver's seat, along with possibly a partner like an advisor or someone you trust. But have that plan actually paint out the direction of what you want your life to be, how you want your money to work for you. And once you have that plan, be really comfortable with the fact that it's going to change. And by the way, it should change because your life changes, right? You have a different career, you get a different job, you have children, life happens. And so you need to have that plan change. And so I encourage people to think about the direction, not the perfection of that plan. And then the last point is we don't know what's coming next, right? In life, we never know. And so people want to try to predict everything. Don't predict it. Just plan for it and be prepared. And so often we're talking about the emergency dollars that you needed to fund something that you didn't even realize was going to happen. Your roof, your car, your this, your that. Have an emergency savings plan. put some money aside so that when the emergency happens, when something happens where you need those dollars, you don't need to take them from your investment account. You actually have them waiting for you to deploy as you need. So again, not about predicting everything, just be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared, have a plan. I too am thinking, what does a linear path look like? Working at a company for 50 years and 9 to 5, but people change careers, things happen in their family. So having a plan is sound advice. When we got the questions, we also heard from advisors. You've mentioned financial advisors, financial planners, people who help individuals with their financial path. And we heard from advisors who work with small business owners. And they want to know, what should they be thinking about when they help these business owners plan for retirement, both for themselves, but also for the employees of that small business?
Yeah, it's so interesting when you think about small business owners. First of all, many of these small businesses are not that small, right? We call them small business owners, but these owners, these creators, these entrepreneurs, these inventors, they have built incredible businesses. And so if I'm a small business owner and I'm thinking about what my future is and when I might retire, it's not just about how am I going to generate income. It's about what do I do with this creation, right? This thing that is so aligned with my identity. It's so purposeful to me. I'm thinking about succession planning. I'm thinking about how do I have this live on? How do I have my legacy live on? Who are going to be the leaders of this business? And so there's so much to that conversation that actually has nothing to do with the financial aspect of it. And so I encourage advisors to think about this as this is an emotional conversation. And in fact, that small business owner needs someone they can trust, someone who can really help them, give them the right judgment, the right counsel, but also remove the emotion from that conversation, because it's an incredible opportunity to build a business. It's an even more incredible opportunity to then leave a business. And what I would also say is for advisors working with small business owner clients, make sure you have that conversation early, right? Don't wait for the day where that small business owner wakes up and says, I'm thinking about selling this business or I'm thinking about transitioning this business. Know that that's a 10-year plan. That's a 15-year plan. You need to have a lot of time to work with that business owner. Now, on the flip side of it is as the business owner might be thinking about retiring, think about retirement for all of those employees, right? All of the employees that business owner has hired to help create this business, to help deliver on this business. What an incredible opportunity and benefit to give each one of those employees the opportunity to save for retirement. And so if you're an advisor working with a small business owner, it's not just about how that business owner is managing their business and running their business. It's about how that business owner is retaining their talent, attracting new talent, and serving that talent, all of their employees, and doing so by setting up a retirement plan for them. And so having a 401k plan or some type of retirement savings program so that every employee that's working for you has an opportunity to not only deliver on your vision, but also deliver on their life vision for their families and build a retirement fund.
And you mentioned being prepared is so important. And sometimes people reach retirement and they're not prepared. But if they work at a business, at a company that has put some infrastructure in place to help them save and invest, then maybe they stand a better chance of being prepared when they get to retirement.
Absolutely.
We also heard from advisors about long-term engagement. And what they mean is that many workers start saving in their late 20s, but the advisors may not meet them until decades later. So sometimes the individual investor and that advisor, they don't link up right at the beginning of when the saving and investing journey starts. So the advisors are asking, what can they be doing now to build relationships earlier in a client's savings journey?
Yeah, it's a question I hear all the time. So there's a few things going on here. For advisors, oftentimes they meet their clients when the client's wealth is larger, or perhaps when their situation gets a little bit more complicated and they actually need an advisor to help them think about different situations. The problem is at that point in time, that client might already have another advisor. They might have 2 or 3 other advisors. And so they're really deciding who is the one advisor I'm going to work with? Who is the one advisor I really trust? And if you instead start building a relationship with a client much younger, you have a much deeper relationship with that client. You were there for them when they needed you in the way beginning. And I think about my relationship with my financial advisor. My advisor was my mentor. When I first started working, she was someone that I admired. And she was a mentor of mine. And she took me on as a client way back when all I had was student debt and a 401k plan. And she was my mentor. She took me on as a client. I was not her typical client. She's still my advisor today because I am so loyal to her and she has built such an incredible trust with me. She's helped me through all of my life changes. And so for advisors who are thinking about how they deepen their relationships or even attract younger clients, help them think about life. Help them think about career, help them think about jobs, savings, college loans, help them think about the challenges that they might have at that point in life. And don't worry about selling products. Don't worry about all of the details that come along with financial planning. Instead, just be a partner to them and help them think about how they navigate the choices and decisions they're making then. The other thing I might just offer is many advisors are working with the parents of these children. And so when you think about the fastest growing segment in the market today, it is millennials, people under 44 years of age. Those 44-year-olds will be responsible for about $70 trillion in a wealth transfer over the next 10 years. So those children of your clients are very important potential clients for you. And as the wealth transfers to those children, you need to have a relationship with them before that happens. And so if you're working with the parents of the children, ask those parents to bring the children along. Help the children think about their life along with their parents.
And speaking of the children, going back to sort of the younger generations, which we said they're incredibly engaged in their finances, and maybe that's because the advisor has engaged them, or maybe they're just reading more about it and hearing more about it. But they often turn first to friends or social media for guidance, which I guess is not overly surprising. But what's the best way to demonstrate the value of professional advice to someone just starting out? It sounds like you had a mentor, but what about those other younger generations? How are they supposed to see the value of that advice?
Yeah, I mean, the world is so different today. The younger generations, and by the way, it's not just the younger generations, it's everyone now. Everyone relies so much on technology, on digital, on AI, on social. We call oftentimes some of the younger segments the WeChat generation, because they are so engaged in digital, in social. They oftentimes trust social more than they'll trust people. And so what we talk about with advisors, and some of the best advisors who do this well, are really trying to be just that, the advisor. They're relying on experience, on judgment, on context. Whereas social media is relying on emotion, right? And chasing trends and making reactive decisions. And by the way, you can get a lot of ideas from social media, but social media doesn't know who you are. It doesn't have the context of what you're going through. It doesn't have the context of your financial situation. And it certainly doesn't have the judgment and the experience that an advisor has. And so I always tell people, and by the way, I look at my friends and family and say the same thing. You can get a lot of great ideas online. And by the way, that's good. Bring those ideas to your advisor and talk to your advisor about it, because they will then look at those ideas and have a conversation with you through the context of who you are and what you need, and not just the short term, but the long term. And what would this idea do to better shape your future?
Jaime, I knew you would do great with this. The Ask Me Anything format. You're a wealth of information when it comes to thinking about things like retirement and saving and investing. And I heard a few themes, which was, again, going back to retirement being the freedom to do what's next, but important to stay prepared, to have a plan, not only leading up to retirement, but also having a plan once you get into retirement as it relates to your finances. We talked about some of the younger generations and the encouraging trend that they're focusing on their financial future. We also talked about the value of professional advice. And I think this last point you made, where you can get a lot of ideas from social media and online, but bring those to somebody who knows you well. Jaime, we appreciate you sharing all these insights, and we appreciate you doing it on The Bid.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bid. Next week, I'll be speaking with Jay Jacobs about the macro investing themes he's considering in this new year. Don't forget to subscribe to The Bid wherever you get your podcasts.
This content is for informational purposes only and is not an offer or a solicitation. Reliance upon information in this material is at the sole discretion of the listener. In the UK and non-European Economic Area countries, this is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. In the European Economic Area, this is authorised and regulated by the Netherlands Authority for the Financial Markets. Reference to the names of each company mentioned in this communication is merely for explaining the investment strategy and should not be construed as investment advice or investment recommendation of those companies. For full disclosures, go to blackrock.com/corporate/compliance/bid-disclosures.